Lesson number 27, Exercises in Closing. Hello guys, kumusta mga kaibigan? In this lesson, we are going to perform closing of the books. After we had prepared the income statement and the balance sheet, it's time to close some accounts. What accounts are we going to close? First, we are going to close the consulting revenue account. Then, all expense accounts. Also, we are going to close the Pamintuan withdrawals account. Let us start with the consulting revenue account. Let us record the closing entry to close the consulting revenue account. By the way, if you would notice, we are now on page 3. So in our posting reference in our ledger, the reference should be J3. Okay. Now, in order to close the consulting revenue account, first, write the date, March 31. Debit consulting revenue, 173,000 pesos, because that's how we decrease or we close consulting revenue. We debit it. Then credit income and expense summary account, 173,000 pesos. Let us post the debit entry. In the consulting revenue ledger, we write the description to close the income account. There's no need to write the date, 31. Because we had already written it in our previous postings. So description to close the income account, posting reference J3. Under the debit column, write the amount 173,000 pesos. In the balance section under the credit column, write 0. Why 0? Because we have a credit balance for 173,000 pesos. Then the debit balance for 173,000 pesos. The balance after closing of the consulting revenue account should be 0. After posting the debit entry, write the posting reference 4100. This is the account code for consulting revenue. Let us post the credit entry. In the income and expense summary account, we write the date, March 31, the description to close the income account, posting reference J3. Under the credit column, write the amount 173,000 pesos. And then in the balance section under the credit column, you write the same amount, 173,000 pesos. Please take note, this account, income and expense summary account, is only a temporary account. In fact, we are just using this account during closing. After posting the credit entry, write the posting reference 3300, the account code for income and expense summary. To close the expense accounts, we debit income and expense summary for 24,570 pesos and 43 centavos. We credit salaries expense 4,000 pesos. We credit utilities expense 2,299 pesos. We credit traveling expense 3,200 pesos. We credit supplies expense 3,000 pesos. We credit rent expense 5,000 pesos. We credit depreciation expense 571 pesos and 43 centavos. We credit taxes and licenses 3,500 pesos. Then we credit advertising expense 3,000 pesos. Write the description to close the expense account. Let us post the debit entry. In the income and expense summary ledger, write the description to close the expense accounts. Posting reference J3. Under the debit column, write the amount 24,570 pesos and 43 centavos. In the balance section under the credit column, write the amount 148,429 pesos and 57 centavos. After posting the debit entry, write the posting reference 3300, the account code for income and expense summary account. Let us post the first credit entry, a credit to salaries expense 4,000 pesos. In the salaries expense ledger, write the date 31. Write the description to close the expense accounts. Write the posting reference J3. Under the credit column, write the amount 4,000 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, write 0. How did we get this amount? We have a debit balance, 4,000, less a credit balance for the same amount, so the balance of salaries expense after closing should be 0. After posting the first credit entry, write the posting reference 5100, the account code for salaries expense. Let us post the next credit entry. In the utilities expense ledger, we write the description to close the expense accounts. Write the posting reference J3. Under the credit column, write the amount 2,299 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, write 0 because after closing, utilities expense should be 0. After posting the credit to utilities expense, write the posting reference 5200, the account code for utilities expense. Let us post the next credit entry. In the traveling expense ledger, write the date 31, the description to close the expense accounts, posting reference J3. Under the credit column, write the amount 3,200 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, write the amount 0. After posting the credit to traveling expense, write the posting reference 5300, the account code for traveling expense. Okay, let us post the credit to supplies expense. In the supplies expense ledger, write the description to close the expense accounts. Write the posting reference J3. Under the credit column, write the amount 3,000 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, write 0. After posting the credit entry to supplies expense, write the posting reference 5400, the account code for supplies expense. Let us post the next credit entry. In the rent expense ledger, write the description to close the expense accounts. Write the posting reference J3. Under the credit column, write the amount 5,000 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, write 0. After posting the credit entry to rent expense, write the posting reference 5500, the account code for rent expense. Okay, let us post the next credit entry. In the depreciation expense ledger, write the description to close the expense accounts, then the posting reference J3. Under the credit column, write the amount 571 pesos and 43 centavos. In the balance section under the debit column, again write 0. After posting the credit entry for depreciation expense, write the posting reference 5600, the account code for depreciation expense. Let us post the credit entry for taxes and licenses. In the taxes and licenses ledger, write the date 31, the description to close the expense accounts, posting reference J3. Under the credit column, write the amount 3,500 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, write 0. After posting the credit entry to taxes and licenses, write the posting reference 5700, the account code for taxes and licenses. Let us post the last credit entry, a credit to advertising expense. In the advertising expense ledger, write the date 31. Write the description to close the expense accounts. Posting reference J3. Under the credit column, write 3,000 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, write 0. After posting our last credit entry, write the posting reference 5800, the account code for advertising expense. After closing all the expense accounts, it's time to close the income and expense summary to the Pamintuan capital account. In order to do that, we're going to debit income and expense summary for 148,429 pesos and 57 centavos and credit Pamintuan capital for the same amount. Write the description to close the income and expense summary account. Let us post the debit entry. In the income and expense summary, write the description to close the income and expense summary account. Write the posting reference, J3. Under the debit column, write the amount, 148,429 pesos and 57 centavos. In the balance section under the credit column, the amount should be 0. Why? Because we have a previous credit balance for 148,429 pesos and 57 cents. Then we have a debit for the same amount. After closing the income and expense summary account to Pamintuan Capital, the balance should be 0. After posting the debit entry, write the posting reference, 3300, the account code for income and expense summary. Let us post the credit entry. In the Pamintuan Capital account, write the date, 31. Write the description to close the income and expense summary account. Posting reference, J3. Under the credit column, write the amount, 148,429 pesos and 57 cents. In the balance section under the credit column, write the amount, 248,429 pesos and 57 cents. After posting the credit entry, write the posting reference, 3100, the account code for Pamintuan Capital. Lastly, we need to close the Pamintuan withdrawals to the Pamintuan Capital account. In order to do that, we're going to debit Pamintuan Capital for 2,000 pesos and credit Pamintuan withdrawals 2,000 pesos. Write the description to close the withdrawal account. Let us post the debit entry. In the Pamintuan Capital ledger, write the description to close the withdrawal account. Posting reference, J3. Under the debit column, write the amount, 2,000 pesos. In the balance section under the credit column, write 246,429 pesos and 57 cents. After posting the debit entry, write the posting reference, 3100, the account code for Pamintuan Capital. Let us post the credit entry. In the Pamintuan withdrawals ledger, write the description to close the withdrawal account. Write the posting reference, J3. Under the credit column, write the amount, 2,000 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, write 0. Because after closing the Pamintuan withdrawals account to Pamintuan Capital account, the balance of Pamintuan withdrawals should be 0. After posting the credit entry, write the posting reference, 3200, the account code for Pamintuan withdrawals. After we had closed all the income, expense, and owner's withdrawal accounts, it's time to prepare the post-closing trial balance. In the post-closing trial balance, only asset, liability, and owner's equity accounts will be presented. So let us start with the cash balance. The cash balance after closing is still 173,800 pesos. This is our post-closing trial balance. It is similar to the adjusted trial balance. It's just that we need to change the description of the trial balance. It's no longer adjusted. It should be described as post-closing trial balance. So we write the balance of the cash ledger account, 173,800 pesos. Next, accounts receivable, a debit for 55,000 pesos. We write its corresponding balance in our post-closing trial balance under the debit column, 55,000 pesos. Office supplies has a debit balance of 200 pesos. Write the balance of the office supplies in our post-closing trial balance, 200 pesos under the debit column. Prepaid rent has a debit balance of 10,000 pesos. Write its corresponding balance, 10,000 pesos, under the debit column. Office equipment has a debit balance of 25,000 pesos. Write its corresponding balance, 25,000 pesos, under the debit column. Accumulated depreciation of his equipment has a credit balance of 333 pesos and 33 centavos. Write the balance of this account under the credit column, 333 pesos and 33 centavos. Furniture and fixtures has a debit balance of 20,000 pesos. Write its corresponding balance under the debit column, 20,000 pesos. Accumulated depreciation, furniture and fixtures has a credit balance of 238 pesos and 10 centavos. Write the balance under the credit column, 238 pesos and 10 centavos. Accounts payable has a credit balance of 25,000 pesos. Write its corresponding balance, 25,000 pesos, under the credit column. Utilities payable has a credit balance of 1,999 pesos. Write its balance under the credit column, 1,999 pesos. Unearned revenue has a credit balance of 10,000 pesos. Write its balance under the credit column, 10,000 pesos. Lastly, the Pamintuan capital account has a credit balance of 246,429 pesos and 57 centavos. Write its corresponding balance under the credit column, 246,429 pesos and 57 centavos. So again, the total debits should be equal to the total credits. Our post-closing trial balance has a total debits of 284,000 and a total credits of 284,000 pesos as well. Congratulations! You had completed all the 27 lessons. I hope you learned something from us, guys. We are very grateful for the time you had spent just to finish the course. Please share what you had learned. That's the best gift you can give to us. So are you ready for more advanced accounting topics? I'm sure you are. Again, thank you very much. Maraming salamat, mga kaibigan. Enjoy learning.